Hello and welcome back to PHP Basics. My name is Sean. Over the past couple months, I've had some requests to go over pagination or pagination, whatever you want to call it. And if you're unfamiliar with what pagination is, essentially it's where you display a certain number of rows per page, and you can go through different pages to eventually display all of that data, kind of like I've got here on the screen. So that's what we're going to look at today. So let's just jump into, well, I tell you what, first of all, let's just kind of look at what I've got set up here. I've got some records in a database, obviously. And right here I'm displaying the ID, the make, the model, and the serial number of some computer desktops that I have in my inventory system. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and hop into our PHP editor. And let's just wipe all this out. So if I refresh here, we should just get back to my main page. There we go. Alright, so the first thing that I want to do is connect to my database. What we'll do is we'll just create a variable called mysqli. And it's going to equal a new mysqli. And this has 4 parameters. We have the server name, which for me is localhost. The user name that you'll use, which for me is password, or I'm sorry, root, your password, and then the name of your database, and mine is just called test, and I also don't have a password, so I will leave that blank. Alright, so now let's determine how many records we want per page. Right. Currently I've got it set up as 10, so I'm just going to create a little acronym here, RPP, results per page, and that'll equal 10. We can make that whatever we want. And now we need to check to see if we're actually getting the page from the URL. And to do that, what I'll do is I'll just set up a shorthand if statement. So I'll say is set, and this will be the get page variable. And the page is going to equal get page if it is available. If not, then page will just equal 0. And then, of course, you'd want to use mysqli real escape strings or make these integers, and that would protect your page. But right here, we're going to check for set page, we'll say. Alright, so now we need to check to see if it's actually on page 1 or not, because the formula that we use to display the records will not work on page 1 because we're starting at 0. Okay, so what I'll do is check for page 1. To make this a little bit simpler, I'll just use a regular if. So we'll say if page is greater than 1, then our start page is going to equal the page times the results per page minus the results per page. Alright, so basically if I'm displaying 10 records per page, right? If I'm on page 2, then that's going to equal 20. Well, I don't want to start on record 20, I want to end on record 20. So we're going to multiply it times the number of records, which would be 20, and then we're going to minus or take away 10, which will bring us back down to 10. So 10 on page 2, 10 will be our first record. Okay. So we'll say else start equals 0, because that means we're on page 1. Alright, so the first thing that we need to do is query the database for the total number of records, not just the first 10 or the second 10 or the third 10, but the total number of records. To do that, I'm going to create a variable called result set, and this will be a mysqli query. And I'm just going to say select ID from inventory. Let's make a comment here. And then get total records. We'll just call this num rows equals the result set num rows. Alright, so with this we can calculate how many number of pages we're going to have to display. So we'll say get total number of pages, and total pages is going to equal the num rows divided by the results per page. So currently I have 81 records, I believe, so that's going to be divided by 10. Alright, so now that we've actually got the total number of records, we can start selecting the records within the criteria that we want. So we'll use result set again because we're done with this result set. Result set equals a MySQL query. And we're just going to say select all from inventory, limit, and we're going to limit from the starting value to the results per page. Okay, and you'll see what I mean here in just a minute. So real quick, let me jump in and refresh this and see if I've got any syntax errors. And I do. There we go. Alright, great. So let's jump down into actually displaying these records. So I should say query results. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll start a table. We'll echo table. Alright, now what I can do is a standard while loop, and we'll say rows equals result set fetch a sock. And this is pretty typical from just displaying any data onto a database or onto your page. So we'll make a variable for ID, and that's going to equal the rows ID. And I apologize if I'm kind of going through this quickly. This seems to be a process that I do in every single video. So you should have this part down. The next will be make, model, and serial. Alright, and what I'll do at this point is I will just echo the row. So let's just say we have a new row for TR, and then we're going to have a column for the ID. And I'll just copy and paste these. The make, model, and then serial number. And then we'll close that row. And then whenever we're done, we'll break out of our table. So we'll echo table. Okay, so right now we're on page 1. It should show record 1 through 10 whenever I refresh the page. And it does. Okay, so now we need to, I'll tell you what we can do. If we do a question mark and page equals 2, you can see now we're looking at 11 through 20. Okay, so if we didn't use that minus or subtract from the number of records per page, we'd actually be starting at 20. So this is just kind of how we tell PHP to go back. All right, so now we actually need to set up the links. All right, so what I'll do here is I'll create, let's just break that paragraph here. What I'll do here is I'll just create a for loop, basically to step through all of our total number of records. So we'll say for x equals 1, which is page 1, and x is less than or equal to the total pages, then we're going to tell x to increase by 1. Okay. And then here, I can just echo our link. So a ref equals question mark page equals x. And then we'll display x and then close the link. Okay, so that's pretty simple. basically we're creating a link 1 through 80. I don't remember. It should be like 9, 8. Okay. So as I click through these, you can see that we go to the appropriate page. However, I know that I have more records to display and it's only going to 8. Well, the reason is, if I was to echo out total pages here at the top of the screen, it's 8.1. Okay, so that creates a problem. So what I can do is I can just do total pages plus 1. And we'll get rid of this. Alright, so now I have 9. And on that 9th page it shows that 81st. So in my code, now I can check to see if it's an odd number or if it's a whole number or not. But for simplicity, I'll just say plus 1. Okay. And we probably need to separate this out a little bit. Okay, so now we can just step through here. And that creates our basic pagination. Now, in the original example that I'd shown, it was styled with CSS and things of that nature. And of course, you can plug that into it as well. But this is kind of the easiest overview that I could come up with to show you how to use pagination. So if you have any questions, please leave comments below. And thank you guys so much for subscribing. That definitely means a lot to me. It means that you're into the things that I'm doing, and it makes me want to keep doing this. So I definitely appreciate that. I'll see you guys on the next one.